Welcome everybody to another edition of Think with a Drink. This is the web show that tries to put a little fun in dealing with your finances, brought to you by the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. This week's episode is tax-free retirement income, right?
Yay.
So, some people like to pay taxes, some people don't like to pay taxes.
Who likes to pay taxes?
I don't know. There were people who like to pay taxes.
I don't want to know those people.
Okay. Clearly, you've not been a resident of the state of Massachusetts for too long then, in terms of dealing with that. But, so anyway, the idea here is different types of income streams in retirement. So if you can pull up the slide, this is just, for us, a quick overview. This is just who we are, then, what's on tap for today's show. My name is Tom Alessi. I am the president of the ARIES Foundation for Financial Education. I have been in financial services now. This is my 25th year. As of the end of 2023, I became a certified fiduciary. I had always been a fiduciary, but now a certified fiduciary, which means that I act in the best interests of my clients whenever I am giving guidance or advice. I want to bring my Vice President, Craig, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the Vice President of the ARIES Foundation. I specialize in, I've been doing this a little over 20 years, and I specialize in working with families and individuals to help them define their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
And Craig will be chiming in as we go along here with this presentation. Real quick, just the info on ARIES. So the ARIES Foundation, we are a nonprofit located in Newton. You can find us on the web. It's ariesfoundation.org. One of the things we say to everybody is the mission behind ARIES is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Because whether you realize it or not, you are in a relationship with your money. And just like every other personal relationship that you have, there are behaviors and triggers and things that cause us to act a little irrationally or not rationally sometimes when it comes to dealing with our money and our finances. That's all myself, Craig, the rest of the ARIES team, we try to do. We try to take some of that emotion out of dealing with your money. So what's on tap for today, if you want to pull that up for us? So one of the things we try to do here, a lot of these topics, Craig, they tend to get a little bit challenging, a little bit daunting, sometimes overwhelming for folks when dealing with money, finances, some of the things that are going on in the world.
And it's not as fun as going to the circus? Is that
Yeah, not as fun as going to the circus at all. Sometimes. Some of the stuff is fun, but most of the time it's not. So we try to make this a little bit more casual, a little bit more relaxed. We can't think of a better way to do that than if we have something to sip on while we're talking about some of these topics. In today's episode, we are drinking, this is from our local brewer, this is Harpoon Brewery. This is their New England style pale ale. So that just means a little hazy in terms of going through that, as far as, not like a hazy IPA, but yes, a little hoppier, right, than a regular pale ale.
So you're saying if you live in New England, you're a little hazy? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's generally the concept that has gone on there with it. But so anytime we're talking about pale ales are, are really something that's going to, you're talking burgers, cheese, French fries, those type of things, a little salty, something that's going to be along those lines as far as food pairings are concerned.
So it's more you can drink a lot as opposed to sipping a little.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these are more meant to be, quaffed down.
Yeah.
You're not guzzling them, but yeah, what is that old slogan, right? When you're having more than one, that type of thing. Yeah, that's what it's meant for. Going to be, though it does have 5.5% alcohol, so it's a 5.5, so it's right in there.
Okay.
It's not too devastating. It's not some of the higher stuff that we've brought in the 7s and 8s.
Higher for a light beer, but yeah.
Correct, which it's not a light beer, but it's a lighter beer than, say, a
Okay.
heavier, darker type of beer that's out there. Next slide. Oh, sorry, Skol.
Oh, Skol, yeah.
Show us drinking. That's all we need, right? So if you could bring that slide back up, I would appreciate it. All right, so what does a tax-free retirement really mean, right? So the idea there is for most individuals, most people out there, their money is pooled into a pre-tax account or a retirement plan, 401k, 403b, IRA, that type of thing, right? Yep. So anytime that money gets pulled out, we're paying taxes on it.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about the consequences of what happens when we pull that money out, right, in terms of the consequence and what that means for you in there and why a tax-free retirement might be a good strategy. But the idea then is, okay, so how am I taking this money out of those accounts and not getting hit with the tax concerns that are going on there? And if you can just pull that screen up with a slide one more time just for that, right? The problem when we have all of our money tied up in a retirement account, i.e. a 401k, IRA type of thing, is that every time we take an extra dollar, we are triggering more tax consequence.
That is true.
And the situation can be that that one extra dollar can eventually trigger a much higher tax than we were anticipating because we can move from one tax bracket to another.
Right, but we were told back in the 80s when they started the 401k that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Why?
Sliced bread.
I'm getting a tax deduction now.
Yeah.
All my money grows tax-free, and I don't
Tax deferred.
tax deferred, and I get to pull it out, taxable if I need it when I get older.
When I get older, right?
Well,
and I'm going to pay,
tax bracket.
and I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. There's
Right.
the myth, right? That's always the myth that comes up is I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I get into retirement. Well, honestly, for most people, once they get to retirement, what are we doing? Right? All that bucket list stuff that I wanted to, enjoy, right? The places I wanted to go, the things I wanted to see, and all of that costs money. And if the money's coming out of those taxable accounts, well, guess what? Now I'm paying taxes on it, and I might be spending the same money I'm spending or more than I'm spending today, which means I didn't alter my tax bracket. I might be in the same tax bracket.
Right, I mean, I spend more when I go on vacation, and
Yeah.
you're going on the longest vacation you're ever going to take, so probably going to spend more money.
Right, and the other worry with that, sorry, just to go back one quick second with that, just a final thought on this. The other is that trying to make sure that that money's going to last for the rest of your life, right? Because that's the biggest thing. I'm worried about running out of money. Well, what's taking away when I'm, besides distributions, is taxes.
Right, yeah, and 20 to 30% of your income
Yes.
gone. Right.
So now you can go to the next slide. Thank you for that, by the way. Right, so what's in your buckets, right? So when we talk about retirement income, we're really talking about three different types or options when we come to it, right? So we've got the tax me now, tax me later, tax me never, right? So, and
Okay.
we're going to talk about the ones that will be tax me never type of thing. But, tax me now, that's after tax, right? So I put my money into a mutual fund or a stock or something like that, or even into a CD in today's world,
Or
right?
Roth.
No,
Not
tax
going
me.
to go there. Okay.
No, because we're taxing me now on the money.
Okay,
right?
tax me now.
Right.
Yep.
So then tax me later. Now 401k, IRA,
ARIES.
I put the money in. I'm not getting taxes today. I'm getting taxed later. And then we don't ever want to get taxed.
Okay.
Right? Now, like you said, Roth, but Roth is using after-tax dollars to then get taxed later on. It is a consideration about creating that stream.
Well, it's tax me now on the basis, but you're never getting taxed on your earnings.
Never get taxed on the growth, right? And there's and we will talk about that, there's like 6 different places that you can draw retirement income where that's not going to be taxable. And so that's what we want to talk about when we get into that tax-free, but you sort of got to have that mindset of thinking, where am I drawing my money from and how is that affecting me?
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. All right, so the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion is the thickness of a prison wall.
That's what my accounting professor used to tell me. Exactly, just like that.
It's probably that
There's
guy.
a fine line, yeah. He said, Craig, you're going to be in one of those two positions. You'll be a great accountant or a great prisoner.
You're either going to do this very, very well or you're going to be terrible at it and then everybody's going to jail. But the whole idea there with it, and the reason we bring that up and have that that conversation with folks is that the tax code is set up to create and allow you to take deductions and strategies and have this income available to you that you don't need to be paying taxes on. If you're not aware of the tax code or not aware of the strategies, then you fall into the trap of you're paying more in taxes than you not necessarily need to.
or required to.
You're required. There we go. Required. Thank you. Yeah. See, I'm in prison now. There we go. You're behind the wall in terms of dealing with it. But yes, but that's the point of it. Is the idea that I am required to only pay so much. I don't have to pay more than that.
Right. Do your fair share.
But do your fair share. There you go. Next slide. All right. So why be concerned with taxes at all in retirement, right? One of them is essentially what it comes down to is what we sort of talked about, that whole idea of if I'm looking at this from the idea of here, I have this pot of money and I'm using this money to live on in retirement.
Yeah.
And I get a down year that happens and now I'm paying taxes on it. It's almost like triple dipping from there where I'm taking out, it's going down and I got to pay taxes on it too.
Right.
So it makes it much harder to make that last for longer when that occurs.
Sure does. Yep.
The other is Social Security. Not to like bum, we've got booze here, so that's the reason for it, but not to bum anybody out. But for anybody who doesn't know, your Social Security benefits are taxed. They are taxable. If you earn over a certain amount of money in retirement, your benefit is going to be taxable. For a single individual right now, that's $25,000. If you make more than $25,000, your Social Security benefit is taxed at 50%, whatever that benefit amount is. 50% of it goes to your ordinary income tax, all the way up to 85% if you make more than $34,000.
Well, that percentage of your income is taxed. It's not a 50% tax,
correct.
right?
No. It's 50% of your account balance, 50% of your benefit balance, benefit base, whatever it is taxed at whatever your ordinary income tax.
Taxes ordinary income, right?
As your ordinary income rate. So that's why part of this is, be wary that you're going to trigger, because what comes income is that money that's coming out of a retirement account.
Right.
And so if I'm drawing money out of a retirement account, I am now double dipping myself. I'm now taking away because I got to pay taxes on my Social Security as I do this. The other one on there is Medicare. So what happens is with Medicare has certain thresholds that you hit. We're going to go deep into Medicare because it's a convoluted system in terms of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But essentially what happens is there is a surcharge on the Medicare premiums if you as an individual earn more than a certain amount in a year, right? That amount being how much I drew out in taxable income, whether that's earnings or pulling money out of my retirement account. I then add whatever I got taxed on my Social Security onto it, and then any other distributions or dividends or anything, capital gains that I got paid, that gets added on there. And oh, by the way, for those out there who've been told that municipal bonds, we're going to talk about them in a little bit, this gets added in there too. Wow. And that surcharge on that premium, that never goes away.
Yeah. So that's not another tax. It's just called a surcharge, so I don't say I got double taxed.
Yeah, that's the part of it, and sort of what's there is that whole idea that, wait, this taxable income that occurred, so this whole conversation that we just had about, I was going to pay less in taxes in my retirement.
Right.
Well, all right, I paid this amount of taxes, but then that triggered this to happen, which then triggered that to happen, and next thing you know, I've got this snowball effect that now I'm paying so much more than I had originally anticipated, makes it much more difficult for that money to last for the rest of my life.
Wow, retiring's easy.
Oh yeah, it's simple. Like just, that's it. Just walk right out and go through it. But this is why being aware of taxes in retirement is so important, that folks need to really be thinking about, how am I drawing this income? Do I have multiple buckets, multiple strategies, multiple options that I can choose from? Because if you don't, you get limited. Like if everything is just plowed into and piled up in that retirement account, which is what, as Craig said, we've been told all along, all this is the greatest thing, just plow all the money in there. Well, now I got to take it out and it's all taxable to me. Oh, and if I wanted to make up that extra money that I lost in my Social Security benefit, where am I getting it from? Oh, I got to reach into my 401k, and now what? I triggered more tax, maybe a different bracket.
Yeah, and this is what gets me a lot of times too. A lot of advisors, some advisors will actually tell you, let's try to build a pile as much as you can.
Right.
What can you get for a return? How much, you want to make sure when you retire you've got this amount of money in there. It's not about how much money you have, it's how much you can spend when you're retired.
Yeah.
And how long it's going to last. Because if you have a giant pile and 30 or 40% of it's gone in taxes, well, not as big a pile as you thought.
Yeah. Right. And then it's not going to last. So the next one is, this should be our misbehaving with money minute. I believe that the next slide comes up. Yes, misbehaving with money minute. So real quick with this. So this is just talking about taxes. And the misbehaving with money minute here is if you are getting a tax return, right? So if you're one of those people who, file your taxes and every year you get a tax return, the misbehaving with money minute with your taxes is blowing that tax return, using it for evil and not for good, right? So evil.
Yeah. Yes.
And what we mean by that is a lot of people aren't good at saving. Let's just face it, that's what happens. We're not good at saving. We have this now, we're letting the government use our money, this tax return. I'm getting this portion back in my tax return and then I'm turning around and blowing it instead of using it to either pay down debt that is there, fund towards some goal that I have, good, not evil.
I'm not blowing it, I'm stimulating the economy.
I'm just spending it here and there.
I need that big screen TV.
Yes.
Come on, man.
But that's the misbehaving with money minute, is just think about if you've got a tax return that's coming in, just plan to do something with it that's going to help you in the long run, get you to the point of where you're trying to get to, because that's ultimately the goal for everything.
I'd say the first thing to look at is your emergency reserves. Do you have adequate emergency reserves? Right.
Right, which should be a goal for everybody to be building up. That's a completely separate conversation. But building up an emergency reserve fund, there you go. If you're getting this return, you've got a portion of it right there, or at least to start it, kick it off, put it in motion type of thing.
Absolutely.
Next slide. All right, so sources of tax-free income, and I'm going to ask you to leave this up for a little bit because we want to sort of touch on each one of these. Right, so the first one there everybody sort of knows or has heard about, which is a Roth account, right? So Roth IRA, Roth 401k, this is money that you, as Craig had mentioned earlier, you put in after tax dollars.
Yep.
They grow tax deferred, but when they're taken out in retirement, they are tax-free income.
Yes.
You do not have to pay taxes on it, which means it doesn't trigger any of those other consequences, Social Security, Medicare, or anything.
Right. It also doesn't trigger required minimum distributions. Right?
Right. Another good point. No required minimum distributions there with Roth. Now, for some folks out there, they cannot use a Roth because they make too much money. They don't have access to it. So limited in terms of who can participate, who can use it. You can convert your money, your current 401k IRA, to a Roth account, but you're paying taxes today. And if you're already a high earner paying in a high tax bracket, why are you doing that?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't do that unless you had some kind of offsetting expense. Right, that allowed you to lower the tax or pay no tax on the conversion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just got to be careful.
The second one up there is health savings accounts, otherwise known as HSAs. So an HSA is a high deductible savings plan that allows an individual to put money in. This is supposedly to pay for the deductible, for the co-pays, for the other things that come up. And as an individual, you can put away, it's like $3,800 this year. As a family, you can put up like $7,700 away. And that money is pre-tax that grows tax deferred, but when it's used for medical purposes, it's tax-free. And here's the thing with it. Unlike an FSA, which is a flex spending account, an HSA is not a use it or lose it. So this is, I can put this money in. It's pre-tax to me, and it can sit there and grow. And yes, you can even invest it. That's a whole different conversation. But I can get growth on this and then leave it there until I'm in retirement.
Yep.
And then use that to offset and pay for, I'm old now, I need drugs and medications and everything else.
Drugs.
All the other stuff that goes on there.
Well, the other thing you can use it for too is you can also use it for any medical type premium, like your Medicaid. It comes out of your Social Security, but if it didn't, you can use it for that. If you have long-term care insurance, you can use it for that. So, and like I said, this is the best deal going.
Yeah.
This is you're never taxed.
Correct.
I mean, I don't. And the other thing is more and more plans are getting, high deductible plans.
Right.
So you're
They're
not getting
bringing
those
the
low deductible
HSA, most employers now are bringing some form of an HSA available to the employees at the company, and this gives you that ability. It's like a triple tax benefit. I mean, it really is something, if you're not taking advantage of it, to look at it. The third one on there is municipal bonds. Now, municipal bonds are tax-free. You're putting the money in, it's growing, and you're using it. However, when it comes to Medicare, Medicare will look at the distribution from a municipal bond and include that as like a capital gain. It's added on to, hey, you had this income, we're going to hit you with your surcharge because of that. Now, you got to get up to the qualification and all the numbers there, but for somebody who's only using like 4,000 or 5,000 out of the municipal bond, probably not going to trigger anything. But just be aware that that is one of the sort of sidetrack or offsets.
Well, it's one of the things that you don't think about, especially when you're younger and you're participating in munis, because your accountant says, hey, do munis, you don't have to a tax burden.
Right.
Right? But then you get to be 65 and all of a sudden all those munis you come due and you're getting adjusted to your Medicare supplement. Like, whoa, I wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. So it's just one of those more backward ways you can kind of get hit if you're not careful.
And the fourth one on there is Social Security. Now, I know we already talked about Social Security getting taxed, but that's only if you have that income that triggers over the number of Social Security.
Right.
If you don't have the income that triggers over, if you're an individual over 25,000, if you're only taking 24,000, you're not taxed on your Social Security. So the idea there is, okay, I'm going to take 24,000 out of my retirement account because then I'm not going to get taxed on my Social Security. I get my full Social Security benefit. Now, if I need additional income, I better have one of these other buckets set up so I can draw from there, and then I don't create a tax on anything.
Absolutely.
Reverse mortgage is on there. Now, reverse mortgage is one of those, we've done a show on it. You can take a look at it. Reverse mortgage is one of those things, there's certain caveats. You got to be over 62, equity in the property, those type of things. But it is a source of tax-free income that is available. Should you be in a situation and be looking for ways to offset some of that need, some of those costs, that you're not going to get taxed on it.
Right, because a loan, and loans are not taxable.
Right. And then the last one, number 6 on there, is life insurance. So for those who don't think about it, we're not talking about term insurance. Term insurance is just like your car or your home, which is, like I don't ever want to use this, right? Because the only way I ever benefit from this is if I've died. We're talking about permanent life insurance with a cash buildup. And the cash buildup there is money that you can use for whatever reason you want to, and if structured and done properly, will allow you to take it out and not pay any taxes on the income. So it becomes sort of a similar, you can't say it like a Roth, but sort of like a Roth without any of the, I'm not limited to what I can put in or how much it is and limitations.
Well, yeah, there are limitations. It's based on the total face amount and other structures. I mean, the state authority to make determinations on exactly what would constitute a life insurance contract and what you can put into it. But like Tom said, though, if you structure it correctly, you can take out whatever you put in, back out tax-free.
Right.
And if you structure the earnings correctly, you can take those out tax-free as well.
Yeah. And again, when we talk about tax-free income, we're talking about these are now income that can be used in retirement that does not trigger tax on your Social Security, does not trigger Medicare surcharge premiums, any of those things. So any of these can be done in that way, and you want to be thinking about, like, how am I setting myself up? Like I said, you got to be thinking about this. Yes, we've all been plowing money into a 401k, fine, but now might be coming, if we're in our mid-50s, late 50s, early 60s, might be thinking about, does it make sense to continue to do that, or am I better served positioning the money someplace else? Like we talk with individuals all the time who are participants in a retirement plan, and the company is matching to like 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
And they want to put in 10, which is fine. God bless, that's a good thing. But are you maybe better served like going to putting money into the HSA,
right,
putting money into a Roth, and then coming back to the retirement plan, if you can do it, if it's allowed.
Well, even, your own investment accounts, if you're dealing with capital gains taxes versus ordinary income taxes, you can decide what would be a better rate for you in retirement.
Right.
Like I said, capital gains right now, I think max out at 20%.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your particular situation.
Right, and what you're trying to do and how much you're trying to get. Next slide. So, and really, real quick, we're not going to go too deep in this. We've done a whole thing on FIRE. That's financial independence, retire early. We talk about the ARIES version of this. Like it's really trying to position, this is the idea of positioning life insurance to be taking that distribution out, and how life insurance can create this additional income stream that offsets risk in parts. And if you ever want to go through that, you can reach out to us, that's fine. Check out the show on FIRE we did on financial independence and retire early as well. Next slide. All right, so, making sure that you've got each of the buckets covered, right? So you've got your pre-tax bucket, you've got your after-tax bucket, you've got your no-tax bucket, and then you've got a guaranteed. Now, the one we didn't touch on was the guaranteed, which in this world right now for most people is Social Security. That's the only one that you have that is a guaranteed source of income for you. The other buckets you can sort of think about, but it's hard for anybody to say, I've got some other source of income other than that.
Well, you may have a pension.
Right, correct. Next slide. Right, so really the conversation is, how much should I be saving? What is my target goal? Ultimately, what are you trying to accomplish in all of this with that retirement account? What are we trying to build toward? Or more effective, how much do I need to be living on? With that guaranteed stream of income, Social Security is only going to provide me so much, but I really need to be living on this. And that's the gap, and you need to be filling that in. And if you're trying to fill it in with after-tax money, that becomes problematic.
And don't forget about inflation.
Oh, yeah, and then inflation.
Cost of living
There's all
increases.
sorts of risk that goes on with this. Next slide. All right, so if you ever have any conversation, you got questions, you're not sure what you're doing, you want to, really go through some of how all of this works and really what this all means, right? That QR code on the screen, if you just pause it for a second, shoot the QR code, it's going to open up our calendar. You can schedule a time with us. We're happy to try to answer questions that anybody has, give a little guidance, a little advice. Sometimes it helps to have a little hand holding when you're trying to do this type of thing. Last slide just gives you our contact information, right? So how to reach us, again, the website is www.ariesfoundation.org. You can visit, you can look at the info@aries.org, info@ariesfoundation.org for the email address, and then you can just shoot that QR code to go from there. But otherwise, we want to say thanks and have a great evening.